Hello and welcome to another episode of the Jump Music Initiative podcast. My name is Maddie Lee and I'm here with my co-host Lisa Jacobs. And today we have a special guest, Ben Bloomberg. Welcome, Ben.
Hello.
So Ben is a Grammy-nominated creative technologist who imagines, designs, and builds everything from electro-acoustic musical instruments to AI-driven performances and tours. Ben started recording and running live sound at the age of 9 and has since worked on hundreds of projects at venues and studios all over the world, including Abbey Road, the Hollywood Bowl, Royal Albert Hall, and Carnegie Hall, and has crossed paths with so many amazing artists, including Bjork, Ariana Grande, and Jacob Collier. So thank you so much for being here. The first thing I want to ask you is to give us a little bit more background on who you are in the industry, what's your role, and how you got started.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. Thanks so much for having me. This is really cool. I'm sort of in a weird situation because I have been in school actually, like for the last 12 years. So I just finished school at MIT, like right before the pandemic hit. And so, as far as my role in the industry, I think I'm still trying to figure that out right now. What I know I really like to do is sort of help artists think about technology and music and creativity and sort of weave those together in interesting ways and try new things. I help out with all kinds of things. I do a lot of mixing. I do a lot of sort of software and some hardware design. Just sort of exploring, I guess you would say, yeah.
Awesome. I wanted to ask actually if you could explain a little bit more about what exactly is AI-driven performance and what are interactive music systems, all these big words for young artists or maybe just starting out and don't know what that means.
Yeah, well, I think it's a little bit the Wild West right now. The short answer is we're still trying to figure that out, and you can help define it if you want. Typically when people talk about AI, they talk about a computer that doesn't necessarily always need to be told what to do. So it has some way of doing something better the second time it tries without you having to tell it what it did wrong the first time, if that makes sense. So that's when they talk about machine learning, it's like the machine learns by itself in some way. So there's lots of different techniques that allow that to happen. And honestly, it's a big challenge because a lot of AI systems are these black boxes and you can't really tell them what to do. It's sort of like once they've made their decision, it's just like, that's what you get. And so it kind of presents this interesting challenge for sort of creative applications because there's not a lot of sort of refinement or fine tunability. You kind of design this thing, you train this thing, and then it just sort of does what it does. So one of the interesting things about AI-driven sort of performance and creativity and things like that is just trying to find something that feels sort of meaningful and real. That's not so trivial. And I don't think there are very many people that could really say that, like, oh yeah, we've nailed this. I think people are still experimenting like crazy.
Oh my God, so interesting. Okay. I'm actually just thinking about the fact that the AI is like learning in and of itself, which I've heard about before, but it's still blowing my mind away. Okay, I want to dig into your past a tiny bit because your bio says that you started doing recordings and live sound engineering at the age of 9. And I mean, it's normal for musicians to start really early, but like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about how you got into that at such a young age. And then I also want to hear about MIT and what program you took there.
Sure.
And any other schooling you might have done.
Yeah. I started, really young. I guess there was a band on my street, and it was actually made up of like a bunch of dads on the street, and they would play like bar mitzvahs and like block parties and things. Just like covers called the Blenders, and they I guess they were getting enough shows that like they wanted somebody to help them sort of like plug things in and set things up. So I started coming along like super young, and I couldn't really lift very much at that point, but I was sort of good at plugging things in, and I would sort of keep an eye on like it wasn't even really a mixing desk. It was sort of like, whatever, a stack of gear, and turning knobs every now and then and going out and listening. And yeah, I got excited about that. And that sort of led to me helping out with that stuff at school, because, our school had like the PA system and things like that. And started mixing like Battle of the Bands in high school and things like that. So yeah, it was just kind of, it was really lucky. I sort of just fell into it, and I got really into it. It was super fun to kind of shape the sound and shape the vibe. That's what I like to do.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I just have such a great image of nine-year-old you just like running around plugging in quarter inches.
That's exactly what I think your image is probably accurate.
Very cool that people entrusted you to do that at such a young age.
Yeah,
those dads were sound awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, tell us a little bit about your post-secondary schooling and what you've been doing.
Yeah, so in high school I was really into like live theater and sort of like anything combining computers and like live performance. And we'd sort of like Frankenstein this stuff together for like projects and shows and stuff in high school. And so when I was looking for colleges, I was trying to find places that had good theater and good computer science, and it was sort of a funny overlap. It was kind of hard to find things like that. So I did a bunch of looking around, and I eventually came across this program called the Media Lab at MIT. Where there's a research group there called Opera of the Future, and there's the professor in that group is Tod Machover. He's a Juilliard trained composer, an awesome cellist, but also runs this research group at MIT. And their whole thing was like combining music and technology in really interesting ways and trying to sort of improve people's lives and make interesting experiences and educational experiences and all kinds of things. So I saw this as as a high schooler, I sort of found this and got pretty excited. Actually, I found the Media Lab first, and then freshman year, one of my roommates was working as a research assistant in that lab. And so then I found Todd's lab sort of beginning of freshman year. And it was a really, it was kind of a funny thing because you can't actually be at the Media Lab as an undergrad. The Media Lab is just a graduate program, but MIT has this cool program where basically undergrads can work in graduate research labs. And this counts as research, even though I was like cutting up audio samples and like the same thing, like going to shows to mix and things like that, but it was my research job. And so, yeah, I started working in that group freshman fall with Todd, and he taught me just like crazy. He taught me a lot about listening and how to put on shows and all this stuff. And it basically didn't leave until last February. So it's been a long time working with him. But yeah, it's been a wild adventure, an awesome adventure.
So on that note, listening when you're in different spaces, different venues, I want to ask how that factors into your work. How do you change your approach when you come into a new venue and it's totally different, but the sounds, the acoustics are different? So what do I get? And then I guess, what do young artists need to consider about the venue that they're working within?
I think it's so I said sort of chasing vibes before, and I feel like all levels of this kind of industry or whatever is just sort of like scaled up and down versions of that. So all of the rooms that we work in feel different, and they all have like different requirements. Like Carnegie Hall is like a union cruise, so that like that sets up very specific things you can and can't do, and or if we're in some club somewhere that's really small, and you can load in like super early in the morning and you have all day to play around, that implies something else. So yeah, I think I get really passionate about like finding the relationship between all of the different pieces and trying to sort of weave together like, what can we do that's really exciting in here? It's like, well, we can only get in an hour before we have to go in, but like actually we can get in the week before that. So like, could we like hang something from the ceiling the week before and then like, and then like have it pop up in the middle of the show or whatever, when even though we only have an hour ahead of time, or acoustically, this huge concert hall sounds a lot like cellos, so like we should like let's put a lot of cellos in here, or let's put no cellos in here, and I think it's just interesting to find those relationships, and there's a lot of rooms right now that people build that try to sort of be the jack of all trades, and they end up being like pretty good at most things and not amazing at like any one specific thing. And so I always like to find places that are like have the perfect, just the perfect feeling for something specific, and then like take advantage of that, or like, take that to the fullest extent that we can. So yeah, it's a challenge. I'd say for young artists, a lot of times you don't get to choose. So you kind of do your best, and sometimes you get to a venue and the sound system's horrible, or like, South by Southwest is sort of notorious for like janky PA systems and stuff. And you kind of make it work, and you ride the vibe, and like it's not necessarily about having flawless, pristine, high end at South by. So these are all things just to just to think about and live with, I guess.
So there's obviously a lot that goes into the performances that you help put on, but how do you sort of balance the creative vision of the artist that you're working with, and then your own ideas and what you want to put into it, the artistry of it? How does that collaboration work?
That's a really good question. I think for me, I really just care about the relationship that I have with the artist, sort of personally, and it's sort of like, if that works, then you're kind of just like friends doing something fun, and it's just chill, and if it doesn't work, then it's like more complicated, I guess, and you have to, that's when things, can get hairy or whatever. But I really try now, especially with live music, everything is for the artist. It's really about, helping the artist feel comfortable, and like, and I guess I'll say the word vibes like 500 bajillion times in this interview, but just finding those vibes that feel good. I think that's more important than using any specific technology. And a lot of times people approach this thing and they're like, yeah, like I have this great algorithm and I want to like figure out what to use it for, and that's, in my experience, that can be exciting, and it's definitely fun to like play with new algorithms or toys or whatever. Whoops, sorry. But when you're like designing a performance, it's sort of like about the audience and the artist and helping them to like connect, and whatever is in service to that is great, and whatever isn't, you can use it for something else another time. It's not, that's how I feel about that, I think.
Okay, so let's talk about Jacob Collier, who you've done a lot of work with, kind of live show pre-pandemic. Yeah. And then I've been seeing so much cool stuff that you guys have been putting together during the pandemic, and how to like do like some of those not award shows, but the TV shows and all of that stuff. Okay, so I have like a twofold kind of thing, or just some things that you could possibly touch on that I'm interested in. One is, kind of tell us a little bit about some of the really cool stuff that you guys have been doing together. And also, what is it like working with someone who, for musicians especially, we're all just like astonished, amazed, and like in awe of how he is, and just like really inspired. But like, obviously the way that he's able to create so many interesting things happening is by collaborating with people as talented as you are, and as innovative as you are. And so how do two people who are super innovative and creative at your kind of level, how do you guys mesh and work well together? I know you said you like to work with friends and stuff, but yeah, tell us a little bit about what the dynamic of that is like as well.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't have to tell us about drama or anything. Just like
I think this story is pretty widely out there, but we met because I sent him a Facebook message just kind of out of the blue, and I found one of his videos and was just like, this is really awesome. Like, if you ever want to work on anything, like, let me know. I like to build things. And it happened to be really good timing, and we did this. We did his, like, sort of what was his first live performance in front of a big audience ever at the Montreux Jazz Festival, like for 4,000 people, opening for Herbie Hancock and Chick, then we sort of developed this tour together, and I think it was one of these things where we just kind of got along, and I don't think we thought too much about you know, about like structuring necessarily how we work. It was sort of just like, you know, we both had things that we wanted to try to do. Jacob had tons and tons of ideas, which was really exciting and amazing. And so a lot of what I was helping do is just sort of like untangle them a little bit and just try to figure out like what a path could be for sort of getting close to some of the things he was imagining. And then it was just sort of like a series of experiments. We try one little thing and say like, oh, like that worked pretty well. Like, but this part was really awkward. So like then we tweak it and we try another thing. And like, it was sort of just this iterative process. And, you know, I really think that that's how interesting tech music projects work the best. If there's like lots of opportunity to tweak things and go sort of back and forth, and that way like the creativity can inform what you're kind of trying to do with the technology, and then you try something and then realize the tech does this really interesting thing, and that might inspire another little bit of creativity. And it's sort of this like cat and mouse game where you keep sort of building up on this base set. So you know, we developed this harmonizer first, so we built together, and then we did this looping show, and these were all sort of like building blocks that sort of got assembled into this thing. And then we ended up on tour together, and that was the first sort of big tour was just the two of us, and we had like 8 checked bags, and it was just like this super intense, super stressful situation, but amazing, just a crazy adventure. But like by the end of it, we were like, oh my God, we're never doing this again. Like we're gonna die if we try to do this again. So then, you know, we grew the crew a little bit, and the show gets more complicated. And then, you know, after he released his first album, which I sort of helped work on it, we finished it in LA at Hans Zimmer's studio. And after that was done, we thought, well, like maybe we should redo your studio, your music room, and what would we want to put in there? So we started imagining sort of like what would be cool and what would help him really work as fast as he can work. Because you know, I always sort of think like if he had 17 limbs, he would be able to do like 17 things or whatever, 170 things at the same time. So all of it was sort of like, okay, like let's give you extra limbs. Let's give you extra limbs. Like what would help you sort of fly? And that's yeah, that's what I sort of get excited about in general. And because we got along so well, it was just really easy to kind of find things to both get excited about. And then we both sort of like to, you know, I think him, you know, he's so focused, like laser focused. He'll work for 24 hours straight. And, you know, and coming out of MIT, you know, there's a little bit of that kind of attitude as well. So we're both able to be like, okay, like, let's dive in, let's like go for it, you know? And yeah, it's amazing. It continues to be amazing. I feel so lucky to kind of be on that adventure. And yeah, you know, just working with him, it's, you know, we encounter a lot of people, but it's just crazy how fast his mind works, and sort of how deeply his mind works, you know. So I really enjoy it, and you feel really lucky.
What a cool collaboration. Okay. What do you kind of like dream about or envision for the future of kind of music and technology together? Just like some of that wild, way out there stuff.
I think that's
Unless you don't
that's
want
a
to
really
share.
good question. That's a really big question. Yeah, it's interesting because this is like a lot of what we think about in Opera of the Future at MIT. Like where's this all going? What's going to happen? And you know, I did a lot of my research sort of on this phenomenon that originally live performances and recordings were pretty similar. Because recordings were just basically some capture of a live performance, whatever it was. And then, you know, especially with the Beatles, but with all kinds of, you know, artists in the 60s, people went into the studio and started making these really complicated things that were impossible to perform live. And so then sort of as a result, live performance became this thing where like people try really hard to recreate what they did on the album, but it's actually like really hard to do that because you spend so much time kind of fine tuning and crafting in the studio that when you're in a big live room, it's like really hard to kind of communicate the nuance of all those things. And so as a result, especially for bigger artists, a lot of performances are just running on time codes. So somebody pushes play at the beginning of the show, and it's not that people are miming, but like it's almost like that because nobody has any freedom in terms of rhythm or sections of the song or things like that. That's especially true with like EDM and stuff like that. So so yeah, I think I'm really interested in keeping the crazy parts of production that kind of time code that clock enables. So like when you have all the crazy pyro at an EDM show, or like, effects or things flying through the air, projection, holograms, all these things that are too complicated to improvise. So they really want to put them on the clock. I am excited about finding ways that those things can like follow artists musically without the time code, and so I think that that's coming, and the technology is sort of becoming available to make that happen. And once you can do that, it'll kind of be like, our environment becomes sort of like the medium that we're working in. It's not just music anymore, but it's like music and smell and texture and color and like your air conditioner or whatever. And all these things can be like crafted and sculpted. And again, you can just like create these vibes, right? That would be, these sort of like truly multimedia vibes, where everything is combined together. So I got really excited about that. I don't know if we're heading there, but I like to sort of imagine, sort of crazy experiences that way. And I think live experiences are different than listening to an album. And like there's special things about them that we can like go crazy with, So yeah, that's a bit of a ramble.
Absolutely. So given all of your capabilities intellectually and all your interest in technology, there's a lot of different fields of work that are open to you. So is there a specific reason you decided to channel all of that into music and the arts?
I don't know. That's a really good question. My family is pretty musical. My grandmother was actually in the school where I started doing all the sound system stuff. She was the music teacher, and she originally taught in New York and in the public schools, and then we ended up in Western Mass. So she had retired, but she came out of retirement and was the music teacher in our little town elementary school. And and my family's always been pretty musical, and I think music is just, I sort of grew up with music just as another way that you express yourself, sort of like another language, I guess. And so I think it just felt natural. And I really like the idea of live experiences that happen in real time, and music is a special version of that. Theater is cool too. I like theater.
Awesome. So we have this new segment on the show called Desert Island Albums, or in our current situation, we could even go as far to say as isolation albums.
Okay, yeah.
But is there three musical works or albums or artists that you would recommend young artists listen to?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, oh wow, yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, so that's so funny because I feel like people always ask you what your favorite album is, and I feel like it's totally dependent on what mood you're in. It's like it's maybe the same thing as vibes, but it's like, I feel like I have different albums that I like at different times. But I guess if I had to pick a few artists, somebody who I really love, who I sort of grew up with, is Joan Armatrading. She's she's older, and from a sort of sound perspective and just from a songwriting perspective, I just love her work, especially her self-titled album. That's really amazing. It was recorded like in the 70s on tape, and just nothing fancy, but it's so it's so moving in so many ways. So that's been great. That's like my go-to. And then I always love the Dirty Projectors for something that makes you think. There's always it's always a lot to listen to with them. And who else? I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it there for now. There's lots of amazing music.
That's great.
Absolutely.
I don't know either of those artists, so thank you for sharing that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they're faves.
Cool.
It's good though, because if you are trapped on a desert island, you'll need something for all of your different moods.
Yeah, right.
And so the last thing we usually leave it off on is if there's a piece of advice you'd like to impart on the next generation of musicians, young artists who are just starting out, what would you tell them?
I would say it's important to build things, and whatever that means, if that's your community or like a piece of gear or, you know, a recording studio in your basement or just writing songs every day. I think there's so much, especially now with social media, there's so much sort of opportunity for you to compare yourself to other people. And in some ways, I sort of feel like just doing things and ignoring all of that, even though it's really hard, is important. And yeah, nobody ever started out being amazing at everything. Maybe Jacob, I don't know, but but I think it's important to sort of have space to be vulnerable and to try things without being worried about how they'll be compared to other people. And it's important to just keep doing stuff no matter what. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ben, for being here with us today and chatting about some of your experiences and imparting some wisdom. It means a lot to us. And for everyone watching right now, be sure to check out Ben's work and follow him on socials. And that's it for now. We'll see you in the next one.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Yay! Oh, I love that advice. Build things.
Yeah, that's what I think. I get a lot of MIT undergrad interns who are like literally trying to build things, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
Absolutely. So
Absolutely.
Good. Oh my gosh, we were so excited to talk to you.
Oh, thanks for having me. Tell me a little bit more about Jump Initiative. I don't know too much. I actually saw Bryn, who was in our she was in our research group for a little bit, for a year. So I loved her interview.
Wow. So Jump was started just to be kind of a resource for young musicians who are just starting out and maybe aren't sure where to go or how to get started and break into the music industry. And so one of the first things we did was start this podcast, because I think it's really important to provide a bunch of different perspectives from people who are doing things and can provide some pieces of advice. And so we're just building off of that. We have new workshops coming out all the time. During pre-COVID days, we put on young artist showcases to give them an opportunity to perform live. So we're constantly building, but overall, we're just trying to be this place where young artists can go and get good quality information.
Cool. That's awesome. That's really cool.
And it's been super interesting to be able to talk to people. Well, part of why we were so excited to be able to talk to you is because you are part of a part of the music industry in the field that we don't get a chance to talk to very often, or, you know, that as musicians, we don't even really like understand what your job is half the time.
Yeah. Yeah, neither do I. It's so funny. Yeah. It happens all the time. People are like, so what do you do? Like, what is your role? You're not. And Jacob and I actually have this problem a lot, because I don't know. Yeah, people will ask and we'll be like, we don't really know. Like, I just help out. Whatever people want me to do, I do.
I love it. And it's like, I have this vision of this thing. How does that happen though? Because I don't know how to and you're that guy. It's so great. You make the visions happen. So cool. Amazing. Well, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's
Ben.
really nice to meet you. Let me know if I can help in other ways. I'm happy to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Cool.
Sweet.
All right.
Nice
See you later. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.